Jesus existed, there's actually no evidential proof for the resurrection.
Okay, what is the evidence? What is the evidence that Jesus existed?
Oh, there is evidence that Jesus existed. It's the eyewitness testimony. It's the records.
So the same eyewitness testimony says he resurrected. So why do you believe one and not the other?
He came in confident, ready to prove Islam is the truth. But just a few questions in, he was scrambling. When Big Jon asked for actual evidence, not emotion, not experience, but reason and proof, the debate took a turn. From the burden of proof to the resurrection of Jesus, from logical fallacies to a made-up standard of 100 eyewitnesses, this wasn't just a conversation. It was a masterclass in exposing inconsistency. And by the end, even the Muslim guest had to admit, he had no case. Stay tuned, and if you're ready for honest dialogue and hard-hitting truth, hit that subscribe button and let's dive in.
I mean, I think if you don't hurt anyone, and it deepens your faith, your cultural connection, net positive, that's a good reason to be a Muslim.
Well, you're assuming that's a net positive, right? If it's assuming a falsehood, right, and you're engaging in something that's actually not true and engaged under lies and associated with the negative outcome, then you shouldn't be a part of it. Because the net positives that you're associating with Islam, you can adopt without taking on the Islamic belief.
I see. So you think that it needs to be grounded in truth for it to be a good reason?
Yes.
Okay, I just do not think that any religion has a deductive or inductive reason to believe in it. So you think that Christianity does, right? What's the basis for that?
Yeah, so I'd say the evidential reason. So for example, we have arguments like the argument for motion, we have the contingency argument, we have the fine-tuning arguments, and then we have the evidential arguments of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the historic reportage model. Things like this would point to good arguments to believe in Christianity.
All right. So I was actually from a Catholic grade school, Catholic college. I learned the 5 ways.
What you're doing now is called shifting the burden. So you're goalpost shifting. The original topic is there's no good reason to be a Muslim, but instead of addressing that topic, you're doing a red herring and focusing on Christianity. It's whataboutism.
No, because the stream is titled "Convince Me to Leave Christianity." What I'm saying
that's
is
just the generic title of the show.
Okay. If you demand a deductive or inductive reason for any religion to be a good reason to join, then there is none.
So I just gave you some.
Yeah, so we can discuss them. So the first one, if you're talking about Aquinas' 5 ways, that prove the existence of a God. So it would prove potentially deism, right? That there is a creator.
It would affirm theism, because that God that in the five ways is being all loving, omnipotent, omnipresent God. Deism doesn't have those properties. This would be theism.
Okay, theism. So the 5 ways supposedly points to theism. Now, where it gets muddy is when you talk about the evidential reasons for the resurrection.
I don't think that's muddy.
It only
Again, you're shifting the burden. So you could disagree with the premises. You can disagree with the inductive or deductive conclusions, right? You could say that. You could say, hey, I disagree with it. I don't think this is logically sound, but I'm still giving a logical reason to be a Christian. I'm waiting for a logical reason to be a Muslim.
Oh yeah, I mean there are evidential reasons to be a Muslim, right? Like there's evidence that Muhammad existed, etc. But all Muhammad you're proving is that Jesus existed. There's actually no evidential proof for the resurrection.
Okay, what is the evidence? What is the evidence that Jesus existed?
Oh, there is evidence that Jesus existed. It's the eyewitness testimony. It's the records.
So the same eyewitness testimony says he resurrected. So why do you believe one and not the other?
Oh, because the testimony of the resurrection is much less corroborated than the evidence for him existing.
The same evidence that says that he existed is the same evidence that says he resurrected. Why do you believe one over the other?
No, because not as many people corroborated that they saw Jesus walking around after. So if you're talking about that the people wrote the Gospels, that's 4 people. You need at least 100 people.
There's 21 eyewitnesses. There's 4 people that wrote it down.
Sure, 21
and that's just the Gospels, right? You also have the epistles that would also be written down, and then you have the extra biblical texts that corroborate that's something that you would expect to see of Jesus Christ resurrected. So once again, I just want to point out to the chat, nobody has ever made a good argument for Islam. The only thing that anybody ever does is point to Christianity and go, what about ism? I just want to make that very clear to the chat as we go into this argument for Christianity.
This is not a whataboutism. The
It really
point is
is. It
that
literally is.
people,
You're
no,
saying there is no good argument for Islam, but what about Christianity? That's literally what
no,
you're
I'm
doing.
saying that all religions do not have enough evidential
That
reasons
is
to believe them to
whataboutism.
the letter.
That is
That is not.
whataboutism.
No, I mean, I'm saying, okay, sure. Well, what I'm saying is that if you are to be logically consistent, you cannot say that there is a no good reason to be a Muslim, but there is a good reason to be a Christian.
Okay, provide me similar evidence for Islam that I just presented for Christianity.
What you're proving to me is that Jesus existed. You
You,
don't want to
so
debate me about
you
enough
can't do
people
that. You
corroborating the
can't do that.
resurrection.
You cannot provide similar evidence that I just presented for Christianity that is also in Islam.
I can. I mean,
Okay, do
the
it.
Bible acknowledges the origins of Islam, the church, the records that Ishmael, etc., Muhammad, all of these people existed. There's just as many
Wait,
eyewitnesses
people
that say
existing
that these
isn't
people
anything. I agree, Muhammad
exactly.
existed.
Well, that's the extent of the proof that Jesus existed. There's not actual
No,
proof of
because
the
the same
resurrection. You
evidence
just
that
don't want to
says Jesus
debate me.
Christ existed is the same evidence that says he resurrected. You
No,
haven't
it is
refuted
not.
that.
There is
Yes, it
more than
is.
100 people who know that Jesus was born and that he was executed, but not that he was resurrected. 21 eyewitnesses does not meet the minimum requirement for historical
Where do you
fact, which is
determine the
100
minimum?
eyewitnesses.
Hold on. Where did you come to this conclusion? You need 100 eyewitnesses to get a
That's a
historical fact.
That's historians use that as the
Which
bare
historian?
minimum.
Name one historian, because as far as I know, all you need is one or two. So
Eyewitnesses.
where did you get 100?
No,
Can you quote me an
obviously you don't
historian
need
that
one
says
or
that?
two. That's why in court you
Can
don't
you
even
quote me an
use the word
historian
one
that says you
eyewitness.
need 100?
I mean, that's just the basis. Like,
Can
I
you
don't know. It's
give me
been
a quote that says that that's the basis is actually true? You're just stating it has to be 100. Where do you come to that conclusion?
I mean, that was the basis for
That's three
like
times you said it's just the basis. Give me the source.
okay. Okay, here. Online. 1900 French psychologist Albert Binet, William Stern, Muntzberg. I don't know. I don't know why this matters. The point
Because
is
you're lying. That's why it
I'm not
matters.
lying.
Because this is not the historical criteria. Because if you need 100 witnesses to get a historical fact, literally nothing in history is true. You can't name a
Yeah, I
single
mean,
thing
yeah,
in history
exactly.
that's true.
A lot of ancient history is disputed as
So
a
so
result.
you're
Like
you're
the
going to say
first
Napoleon
dynasty in
Bonaparte didn't
France.
exist?
Oh no, that had enough physical
Okay,
evidence.
give me 100
A lot
eyewitnesses
enough.
to Napoleon
Oh yeah,
Bonaparte.
definitely. Yes.
Go ahead. Give me 100
That,
witnesses to Napoleon Bonaparte. Go ahead.
bro, like just the number of books alone, the people who've written that,
You're
the number
just
of
vaguely
soldiers that
referencing the
survived,
ether. You're just vaguely referencing the
the
ether.
number of
Give me
people that
100
survived the
documents.
battles and that lived in France. This is
Give them
recent
to
history.
me.
There
Give
are
them to me.
photographs. There is
There's a photograph of Napoleon Bonaparte?
there there
Did you
are
just say there's a photograph of Napoleon Bonaparte?
yeah, is there not?
Show me a photograph
Anyway,
of
the point
Napoleon. Go
is
ahead.
like the degree of evidence, physical evidence for Napoleon Bonaparte is incomparable to the physical evidence
You
needed to
have
prove
it. All
religion.
you've done
And
is
that
make
excludes
claims. All you've done is make claims and have showed no evidence. Show me the photograph of Napoleon.
the burden is on you to show
You're the
proof.
one making the claims right now.
You're the one claiming that
I'm not making
Christianity has a
claims.
much
You're making claims.
stronger
You're making
basis.
claims that you need 100 people as evidence to make something a historical fact. You haven't quoted a single historian that says that. Then you said that there's over 100 witnesses for Napoleon Bonaparte. You haven't even given me one witness. Then you said there's literal photograph of Napoleon Bonaparte. You haven't shown me the photo. You're the one making claims, and you have no evidence.
If we want to make this an evidence off, we could totally do that. Probably need more time. What I'm telling you though is if
That you
don't
don't
want to
have any
believe the
evidence.
evidential point. Okay, let's say Jesus did resurrect. The point is that there's not enough evidential basis, for example, to scientific standards. To
So now
prove
you're
that something
shifting. Now you're
happened,
shifting the type
or
of evidence
religion.
to empirical.
I'm not. I mean,
That's
it's
literally
because
what the
you do not
scientific
want to
method is
engage on
empirical.
the fact that evidential is not enough.
It is enough. You're giving ad hoc and arbitrary standards that don't fit anything else. You said you have to have 100 eyewitnesses for history to be true. That's not true,
Okay.
because then if that was the case, nothing in history would be true. I'll tell you
Yeah,
what.
I
I will PayPal you $20 if you can quote a historian that says that you need over 100 eyewitness testimony for a historical fact to be true.
Okay. One sec. Um, Montsberg. Okay, he was talking about the fallibility of eyewitness testimony. U.S. Supreme Court's concerning suggestive eyewitness identification. Well, okay. Of course, I could find this if you gave me enough time. But
I'll give you as much time as you want. I will sit here and wait. Go ahead.
So Simon Greenleaf was one of the first people who floated the idea. He was a Harvard law professor.
He's not an historian.
He was actually...
You just admitted he's not an historian.
No, he's a law professor and legal scholar by trade.
Yeah, he's not an historian.
He's widely known for debating religious historical accuracy. He basically believed directly it was impossible that the apostles could have persisted in affirming the truths they had narrated had not Jesus actually...
Right, that's not what I asked you to find. You're shifting the burden. You were supposed to find a historian that said, and I quote, that you need 100 eyewitness testimony for something to be an historical fact.
Yeah, I am. I mean, his work was all about this.
Show me the quote where he says that. And he's not even a historian.
So, Christopher Browning is a historian who deals with Holocaust history.
Okay.
Particularly Holocaust denial.
Okay.
Right? He had to deal with people telling him that there is not enough corroborated eyewitness testimony about it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why he collated hundreds of testimonies and said, with these 100 testimonies, it is undeniable compared to dozens.
Okay.
To piece together the actions of ordinary German men involved in the Holocaust, etc.
Okay. So where does he say you need 100 for something to be historically true? Where does he say that? Simply saying I have 100 doesn't say.
No, because people kept raising the bar for him, and justifiably so. Because obviously, if you don't have,
you think people were justified in denying the Holocaust until he had 100 documents? So, if you concede right now that there is no historian that says that you need 100 documents or 100 eyewitness, and then you can finally make an argument that you believe that you need 100 eyewitnesses.
Sure thing.
So there's no historian that says that.
I guess it's not verbatim, no.
It's not even referenced. It's not even vague.
All right. Okay.
Right.
Sure.
So if you're making the claim that you need 100 documents from individual eyewitness testimony to believe something historically true, do you believe Julius Caesar existed? Do you believe Gaius Caesar existed? Do you believe that Homer existed from Homer's Iliad? Do you believe the life of Plutarch? Do you believe Plutarch existed? Do you believe Napoleon Bonaparte existed? Do you believe Abraham Lincoln existed? Because I guarantee you're not going to find 100 individual eyewitness testimony on those people.
Well, some of them you can, but I don't think Homer existed, and that's just a sad reality.
You don't believe Homer existed. What about the rest?
The point is that the further back in history,
no, not the point.
It is
Answer
much
the question.
harder to find deductive or inductive.
Answer the question. Answer the question.
Okay, I'll answer the question.
Okay.
Lots of those people exist.
Why do you believe they existed? You said you need 100 individual.
Lot of testimony for them.
You said you need 100 for anything to be a historical fact.
All right. So you're trying to get me on the 100 thing.
That's because that's what you said.
100. Okay, my bad. It's not 100.
It's not.
The point is that.
All right. Let's unpack what just happened. First takeaway. A religion claiming to be true needs more than good vibes and social benefits. It needs truth at its core. Second, demanding evidence from others while dodging the same standard for your own beliefs? That's not a debate. That's deflection. And third, history doesn't need 100 eyewitnesses to be credible. If you invent standards to avoid uncomfortable conclusions, you're not following the evidence. You're running from it. These conversations matter not because they win points, but because they reveal how we think, question, and search for truth. If that's something you care about too, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. More eye-opening discussions coming your way.